welcome to the Press On podcast. It's Thanksgiving, and we are so glad you are joining us today. My name is Justin. I'm your host, your friend. Whatever you want to call me, that's what I am. And I'm just so thankful that you would take some time to check out this podcast, whether you're listening through a podcast player like iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or Castbox or one of the many other podcast platforms, or if you're watching on video through YouTube. We are just so thankful that you are here. I just want to take a quick minute and remind you that we want you to be a part of our community. In the show notes below, you can find a link to our Facebook community group. We're working hard to try to get that started and built. So if you want to start being part of that and begin on the ground floor of that, help build that, we would love to have you on there. And also we have a Patreon. And so we want you to consider prayerfully giving to the Press On of podcast. If God has blessed you with some extra money and you're not sure what you want to do with that, again, we just want to ask you to pray about it and consider giving to the podcast so we can reach more and more people with this podcast. Again, I'm thankful that you're here. I'm thankful that we have this opportunity to meet together and just talk about God's Word and what He's doing in our lives. For the last 3 weeks, we were in the book of Habakkuk, and we had great feedback on that book. It was such a fun book to go through because not a lot of people even know that book is in the Bible, and so it was a great time. And then starting next week, we are starting Christmas season, my favorite season of all. Not quite sure how we're going to break up the Christmas story just yet, but next week come back and we will find out just how we're going to be looking at the Christmas story. And remember, we're going to shorter shows now, so we're going to try to stay in between 10, 15 minutes. The last 2 episodes have been a little bit shorter, but just enough time that you can turn on this podcast and get filled up. Today, I just want to talk, I know it's cliche, I know it's obvious, but I just want to talk about thankfulness. You know, every year at Thanksgiving, we hear this one question: what are you thankful for? And so, as we have moved into this season, I've been really thinking about, in my life right now, in this season, what am I thankful for? And I keep coming back to one thing. And I am thankful for, in this season, the people in my life. And there's like 2 aspects of that I really want to touch on briefly. And one is my coworkers. For the first time since I was a junior in high school, so probably 13 years, for the first time in like 13 years, I am working with non-Christians. When I ended high school, when I went to college, and then after college, I worked at churches. I worked for my college, and I was always surrounded by people who loved Jesus, which was great, and I will never want to trade those moments for anything. But sometimes it was hard because I would hear people or sermons say, who's somebody you work with that you can share Jesus with or be a light to? And that was always hard for me because those people were showing me Jesus. But now that I work in a place that's not Christian, I can see people who need Jesus. I can pray for them. I can be a light to them and find ways that I can serve them and encourage them and just be Jesus to them. And I'm really loving that. Just last night, I worked with a fun group of people. We were taking pictures during our shift and just having a great time. And I was able to sit back and just thank God for those people in my life right now. I'm also thankful for people in my life who have run into my life when a lot of people have run out. If you've been a part of this show for a while now, you'll know that I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes, and in February, a lot of things happened, and because of my mistakes, I lost a lot of relationships in my life. A lot of people saw what I had done and said, I don't want anything to do with that anymore. And it was hurtful. A lot of people that walked out were people that I thought would be in my life forever. I considered them family. And to this day, I don't talk to them. And it's painful. But I am thankful that in that season, some people have really just run into my life when they haven't needed to. People who have invited me over for supper just to let me know I'm not alone. A former boss of mine showing up on my doorstep unannounced just to check on me. I have a friend in my life right now who, in high school, he was just a couple years older than me. I didn't know him at all, but now we meet every single week. And actually, just right before recording this podcast, he texted me just to check how my week was because we weren't meeting this week. I am so thankful that when other people have walked out of my life, I've had more people run into my life because I don't know what I would do without those people. I'm kind of reminded in the Bible of the story of Ruth and Naomi and how I believe, I'm going to get this wrong, I believe it was Ruth that told Naomi, hey, I'm going to stick with you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be by your side. You're also reminded in the Bible of, Paul and Timothy or the disciples staying together and encouraging each other. Even when Jesus died and they were worried, we see them huddled together. They could have just scattered instantly. And eventually they did, but they were together in that upper room. And then I'm reminded of Ecclesiastes. Now, a lot of us know Ecclesiastes 4:9. It says this, we hear it at weddings. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. But what I really like is Ecclesiastes 4:10. If either one of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. I am thankful that some people have stuck around in my life to help me up when I have fallen. And I want to be that for other people as well. And I pray that you have those people in your life too. That when you mess up, when you make mistakes, that there's somebody that you can call and say, hey, I messed up. And I don't need you to condone my actions. I need you to tell me like it is, but love me through the mess anyway. And I hope one way we can do that as well is through our Facebook community group, that we can create a community of people who just love each other and support each other and speak truth into one another, but doing it in a loving way. It's easy when people in our lives mess up to say, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with you. To block them on Facebook because you don't want to be around that anymore. But I think Jesus calls us to be by their side, stand with them in the middle of the mess. That's what restoration looks like. We are to walk with others through restoration. The armor of God is talked about a lot. You got the sword, that's the truth, and you got the breastplate of righteousness and all of these pieces. But the one piece that's not talked about is what covers the back, because nothing covers the back in a armor suit, a suit of armor. Back in those days, because warriors would often fight back to back. You would have somebody that would stand behind you facing the opposite way to make sure no enemies were coming behind you. And we need that in our lives. We need somebody to say, I've got your back. You don't need to worry because I'm watching for you. And I'm lucky that I have a few people in my life like that. And I pray that the ones that walked out one day, those relationships will be restored and healed as well. But I'm leaving that up to God. And so, again, I pray that you have those relationships as well. And again, I am so thankful for you. Without this podcast, I don't know what I would do. I love putting this podcast together each and every week. I love hearing people message me and tell me that they're enjoying the podcast or give suggestions. If you want to give a suggestion, the email is right below. It's pressonpod@gmail.com. I can't wait to start the Christmas season with you, but I hope you guys have a great Thanksgiving. But as we get through this Thanksgiving and into the holiday seasons, we know it's hard. Some people are grieving, some people are stressed. So we just hope you do one thing, and that's the one thing we encourage you to do each and every week, and that's to press on. Can't wait to see you next week. Until then, adios.